Welcome back. Episode 143 of the Grouch and Brainstorm. I am Mike, and I'm joined today with Matt.
What's happening?
And Dion.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Dion. I'm so glad you're here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Where you at? Where you at right now?
I'm in Denver, Colorado. Well, North Glen, which is a suburb of Denver.
Gotcha.
Lived here since 1979. I love living in Colorado.
1979.
Yeah.
Man, what a good year. Matt, you wasn't even born yet.
Yeah, it was. That was the year I was born.
So Dion, me and Matt, we actually, I think Thursday it'll drop, but we recorded an episode on Sunday morning. It was 5 a.m. here. I'm in Reno.
Okay.
And we recorded a fellow member of our fellowship in London, England.
Wow.
And yeah. Oh, yeah. But here's the kicker. Matt was so proud of his Clark Griswold jersey that he was wearing. And she didn't have a clue who Clark Griswold was.
He's too young, man. Had no idea. So
she was too young.
Hey, you tried. You tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The generation gap just got him. It just got him. And I knew when I saw her pop up on the screen, she's too young to know who Clark Griswold is. I knew it.
I have this shirt, and it is, now I just forget all of the Beatles, and it's John Lennon, right? But he's got the glasses on, and I can tell what age you are because people will come and be like, oh, I love Harry Potter. I'm like, no, this isn't Harry Potter. Yeah, but
that's
thanks.
a good one.
That's not effing Harry Potter.
that is a good one. So
Expelliarmus.
Dion is joining us. What, Dion?
I was just doing a Harry Potter spell of go away, Expelliarmus. It's for the younger crowd.
Well, Matt probably, he's a closeted Harry Potter fan, I'm sure.
I had this one riding down the road, classic rock station on, just music playing, nothing in particular. And this
Air
song
Supply,
comes on.
we know.
No. This song comes on, and this guy's like, "Woo, woo, woo." That's how he sings, and my kid's in the back.
His name's
And
Bob Dylan.
Yeah, he goes, that guy's terrible. Like, who is that? I'm like, that's Bob Dylan. So he has no idea who that is.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So Dion's joining us today from Denver, Colorado, or right outside of Denver. And it's pretty cool to have guests from all over. But what's really cool is to know that recovery exists just about everywhere that we can go now. And to me, whenever I was still in my cups, as the book would say, I had no idea that the recovery community was this big. I had no clue. I mean, you would hear it, and of course, I'm one of those guys, my very first meeting, Dion, I was sitting here thinking, there is no way that guy has been sober for a year. No way. And then a fellow we actually had, I believe on episode 3, got sober May 10th, 1979.
Wow.
And when he said that, my first thought was, oh, man, he must be really bad off if he's still coming around.
Yeah.
So at the time, it was 2011. So I was still a pretty good run. That man would later sponsor me.
Wow.
And yeah, I moved and changed locations, so I had to get another sponsor. But so Matt, you want to introduce Dion?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, social media, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And this is actually, I was just thinking about this as we were talking. Jimmy, who we've interviewed on here, has told a story. We'd like to get him back on video. We had some technical difficulties, but we got him recorded. But he has a little group of us on Instagram, and Dion's on that group with me. We kind of are in that same sobriety group, Sobriety Warriors, and he's great about just kind of piecing things together that people do in sobriety and posting them. And so anyway, I saw Dion had a podcast and a good story. And I said, man, we need to get the guy on here and see what he's got to say. So we're going to turn it over to him and let him roll,
Thank you. So that means we can say, so if this turns out horrible, it's Jimmy's fault.
It is Jimmy's fault. It is Jimmy's fault. Hey, he's got a book coming out. And I sent him a deal the other day, and I said, hey, man, I want to know how much for an autographed copy from the author, And he was like, I don't know.
I've known Jimmy a very long time. So he's a great guy, recovery warriors. And, it's great to see somebody that's a little bit older, maybe a baby boomer out there making those clips, doing what these young kids do. But with the wisdom and experience. So to anybody that's an old timer, thank you. Thank you for planting trees of which I get to sit in the shade. And that is something that I really appreciate. I love our old timers, but I'll go ahead and get started. I did not always live in Colorado. I was born in Ogden, Utah, and I grew up Mormon, lived in Utah till I was 9. And then we moved here. But before we get to that, I wouldn't necessarily say I was a problem child. Well, until I turned a teenager, then it changed. But I was a child with a lot of problems, right? I was a bedwetter till I was 11. I had a speech impediment. I would say my S's through my nose. So my brother not. And, this was mid 70s. So they deemed me retarded. I know we don't use that word anymore, but that was a 70s word. Or I could say mental, be 80s. But, so I always had these problems. I never had many friends growing up. In fact, I would say zero. I was different. The way I describe it is I came out of the womb playing 3-card monte. And Dion always did whatever he wanted to do, but the consequences never really affected me. I did something wrong, I get grounded. I didn't have any friends. I was always home, so this didn't affect me. I would skip school. So, they'd suspend me for 2 days at home with no parental, guidance. I'm like, oh, bummer. Yeah, that sucks. Because I didn't want to be at school. I was bored. I got picked on a lot. And by a lot, I mean a lot. I would sit around in 5th grade class and dream about how I would kill my fellow peers. That was the kind of mind that Dion had. It was a very dangerous mind. And like I said, I did what I wanted to do. My mom was a heavy drinker. She is 39 years sober now, 40, 41. I don't know when you get up there.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of give or take a decade. When I was 12, by this time my mom's drinking had gotten pretty bad, and I've been taking care of my little brother and sister for a while. And I would put them to bed after they did their homework, and I fed them. In fact, I learned how to forge my mother's name by paying the bills. And I think I was better at her signature than she was, which got me out of school a lot too, because I could forge her signature. But, I would do that. I would sneak into my mom's room, grab 2 beers, sit down, watch Taxi and MASH, and go to bed. This was 12, probably closer to 13 years old. And even at that time, I thought I was an adult. Well, I was doing all the adult stuff, so I figured I get to drink too. Now, my mom clearly didn't know about this. And, like I said, she's got plenty of time now. And when I was 13, my mom decided to get sober. It was great. She got sober, and I would go to the Al-Anon meetings with her, and I would go to Alateen, and I would find out that Dion might have some of the alcoholic tendencies, right? And so then that started coming out. And when my parents started saying that I might be an alcoholic, I just took it as more name calling, and I got very, very angry, and I got extremely defiant. And you couldn't tell me what to do, because I did whatever. They'd wake me up in the morning, go to school. I'm like, okay, yeah. And I would just go back to sleep. I'd run away. I'd sneak out of the house, things like that. But something happened to me at 13. Somebody invited me to a party. But to this day, I still think I invited myself. But anyway, I ended up there, right? And everybody's on like half a beer, being all stupid, because we're 12, 13 years old, right? We don't know what we're doing. We could be drinking near beer and thinking we were drunk,
Yeah.
And I was on like my second beer. Everybody thought it was cool. Like, oh, wow, Dion can drink, right? And suddenly people started to love me. People actually liked me. And this was the first time I'd experienced this in my life. It was so exhilarating that I would chase that particular drunk for the rest of my drinking career. That spot right there. I would add drugs to it. I would add women to it, adventure, stealing, whatever I could do to make that even more exhilarating. And it would never happen again, because you can't experience something new twice. But at that point, if you would tell me that drinking was bad, you wouldn't have been able to convince me, because now I had friends, right? Then revenge started, right? So what alcohol did is it lowered my inhibitions, and I became, well, more of a criminal. And I would take revenge on some of these people, but I could get into that part. When I was 14, my parents sat me down. They said, Dion, why are you so angry? And I decided to finally be honest. And I told them why. I'm like, Mom, you got sober. Now you're taking over the kids. You think you know what you're doing. You guys you haven't even thanked me for what I did for you. Dad, you beat me all the time. You've been doing this. My dad was pretty good at whipping out that belt. All right. And they're like, why are you punching holes in the wall? I'm like, because you punch holes in the wall. Why do you think I'm doing this stuff? Like, okay, we had a talk. Just so you know, you have a dentist appointment next week. So make sure you're here. And I show up for my dentist appointment. They have my bags packed, and I went into a place called Comitis Crisis Center. From there, I would go into my first psychiatric center at 14, and I would not return home again. So I went from living in white suburbia, right, where we probably had a black kid and a couple Hispanic kids in our class. There wasn't much culture. To hang around Crips and Bloods, man. And I had to learn how to survive. So I don't know which was more dangerous, living in my house or being at group homes. I tend to think it was my house because I felt safer at the group homes. But I got away with so much there. I used to buy weed from the person next door. There weren't any screens, so we would literally just hand the money back and forth through the windows. I would later meet up with that guy again, and he would sell me weed. So what was his name? Scott was his name. Funny, I remember his name, but not half of my girlfriends. But right, so
He was important.
I would go through the system, right? And when I was 16, I was about 16 and a half, I went to court. Commissioner Allen, we became pretty good friends because I was there every month. And she said, Dion, your last name is Miller, and you need to go by that. I grew up the name Bates, the man that raised me. When I was 11, my mom was drunk and taking us somewhere, and she let me know that my dad was not my actual father, which I already knew because I was the only one with brown hair and brown eyes. Everybody else had blonde hair and blue eyes. I'm like, yeah, I kind of figured that out. But this was kind of, said I need to change my name. I said, well, can we just do it now? I want to go ahead and be Bates. And she said, you can do that when you are no longer a ward of the state. And that's when I figured out that my parents had given up their rights to me and nobody had told me about it. And this is when my anger went full blown. So I asked to get emancipated. I got emancipated at about 16 and a half. By the time I was 17 and a half, I was living on Skid Row. It did not take long. I said, I will show you alcoholic. And I'm going to talk a little bit about rock bottom here because, and this is my opinion only, rock bottom's death. That is rock bottom. Because when we say, if I say rock bottom, what I'm doing is what goes through your head is a brown paper bag drinking under a bridge. And that's where I was at 17 years old. It's weird because denial can run so deep, right? Because I'm drinking under this bridge. I'm the epitome of an alcoholic, but this isn't the bad bridge. No, the meth head's down there. That's the bad one, right? There's always somewhere more worse to go. There's always somebody to point the finger at when you're at your lowest, right? And I tried to get into a few programs. They weren't really working for me, but on March 16th, 1989, God was working in my favor that day. I'd wiggled my way back into white suburbia so I could sleep on some couches. And my friends were fed up with it. I mean, they were finishing high school, right? And, well, you say, what 17-year-old isn't an alcoholic? Well, I ended up on Skid Row. They went to college. There was a difference there, right? They would later on become, but my friend came to me, and I don't know why this happened, but he said, Dion, you can't be sleeping on our couches anymore. Here's $5. You need to get on the bus and go to Salvation Army or down to Jesus Saves. And it was I already knew I was going to get a bed, but I went downtown anyway. I didn't have anywhere else to go. At least I knew what bridge I could go to, but I didn't have a code or anything. And it was March 16th. And I'm walking down the street. I'm about a block away from Jesus Saves. And I noticed that there's this guy who's walking in front of me. He's carrying a six-pack. And turned out to be Pepsi, by the way. But that's what was going through because I would follow alcohol anywhere. I would find the most dangerous places to wind up, which is probably why I have a lot of trauma, right? So he turns around and he says, are you okay? And I don't know why, but I told this person, no, I'm not. And I spilt my guts. I have a drinking problem. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I'm lost. I'm out here on the street. And he said, come with me. And we went up to this big, dark building. This is 1989. And it's about a block away from Jesus Saves. It's dark. It's dreary. It's sad. They open the door and this huge white light just comes streaming out. I hear all this laughter. I walk in, I see the AA symbol up on the wall, and I'm like, well, darn, they got me again. Like, here's AA again. I'd already been in treatment when I was 16, and they had a 5:30 meeting. Basket went around, and I put my last $2 in the basket. I had stopped. I'd gotten a Coke and stuff with some of the money, and it turned out that this was a halfway house for homeless alcoholics called the Phoenix Concept, and they invited me to stay. I had just turned 18 at this point. I was, well, I was already a legal adult. And in fact, they told me 2 weeks later, if we would have known you were 18, we wouldn't have let you in. So God was working in my life. This was a year-long program. I did complete the year. During this, I had a girlfriend. And when I was working at Skipper's and I was a assistant manager, this was about a year before I got sober. And this girl comes walking in, and I saw this girl, and I just knew she was supposed to be in my life. It was one of those instances, and I chased her for 3 months because I asked her out. She said no, and I just don't take no as an answer. I'm just not like that, especially when I really. And so she finally went out with me, and she told me it was because her mom didn't want her dating, and so she meets up with a bad boy. I'm the bad boy. And she didn't drink, she didn't smoke. I called her my goody two shoes. She stuck with me when I was drinking, when I ended up on Skid Row, and she stayed with me when I got sober. And that meant something to me. So, and we would eventually break up, but that's not the end of her story yet. So eventually we did break up. But while I was there, I went on to start working for a place called the West Side Drug for Youth Team. And what we did is we put on a play, went around to schools, did question and answer after the play it's about drugs and alcohol. And we won the governor's award for best prevention team 2 years in a row. I was about 6 months sober when we won that award. It was in September because that's recovery month. And we did our little recovery walk, and they went up to our leader, Pat, and said, hey, do you have somebody that'd like to speak? And they asked me to speak right after the governor. So I'm 6 months sober, standing up on this stage, still living on Skid Row. I was still in the homeless shelter, and my girlfriend's with me, and there's thousands of people out in the crowd. And I talked about how alcohol doesn't care who you are. Well, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, purple, right? And they loved it. They loved it. People were cheering. I knew from then on, I knew at that point, that's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to help lots of people. The age of 20, I became a drug and alcohol counselor and became the assistant drug and alcohol counselor for Abraham Lincoln High School. At the time, they were the roughest school around. A little quick story. I was going to work one day, and this kid comes up. He appeared out of the bushes. It was weird. And he's like, hey, do you have a lighter? I just lit my cigarette down. I'm like, here. And he lights up a joint right in front of me. He doesn't know I'm the drug and alcohol counselor. I'm like, oh, great. What's your name? Yeah. Yeah. And so when I went in, I figured out what classes he was in, and then I pulled him out of class and made him go to group. I'm like, you were busted, dude. I hope you enjoyed that joint. I would get married, have a child, get divorced, have a child, get married, get divorced. All right. So I would gain a couple of kids during this time. When I had about 9 years of sobriety, I decided I didn't need AA anymore. And you already know what happens next. Yeah. So I went out. I went out on a Coors Light of all things. This wasn't a slip. It was a relapse, and I would not return for 15 years.
Wow.
So a slip means that you drank, you came right back. Relapse means you stayed out for a little bit. And so I started drinking. It would take about 6 months before I was homeless again. It wouldn't take much, but I was already familiar with all this. I already knew that my tolerance for alcohol was going to be, I was a drug and alcohol counselor. I worked detox. I'd worked treatment. There wasn't much that I hadn't done. One of the hardest parts about having knowledge about the program, it's like an out of body experience. We call it a head full of AA and a belly full of booze. And I've never found a worse hell in my life, ever. Because you can't help yourself. And you know better. But it was so easy to revert back to the old Dion. It was so easy. It took no effort at all. right? So I started playing drums when I was 30. And 9 months later, I was headlining around town thinking I was a rock star. But really, I was just good at getting the cute girls to show up to the shows. That's what I was good at promoting because our band sucked. we weren't that good. Right. And not all my times drinking were horrible. I got to party with the Allman Brothers. They were pretty cool. That was a lot of fun. I'd start
Really?
interviewing
That's pretty
local bands, putting them on the radio. And that nothing better than going to a band practice to interview them, doing some 10 a.m. day drinking, getting drunk and interviewing. What heck of a life. But eventually, it would all catch up to me. And one day I came home and I had a fiance, two roommates. I came home, they were all gone. Not a word. They just left. And I knew why. I knew it was me. I knew it was my drinking. And I would go in and out of jails because of failure to appear. Nothing too serious. But I'm going to kind of speed it up and get to the last parts of my drinking. When I was 39, I gotten a friend request from that girlfriend that I used to have when I got sober the first time.
Mhm. The
Uh,
one that the teetotaler?
yeah,
The one
yeah,
that didn't drink, smoke, or anything?
that's
Okay.
right. Yeah. And I didn't want to accept the friend request because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed by what I had become. But it also brought me a little bit of hope. And so I took the friend request and we were back together within a few weeks. And now we have been married a little over 15 years now. If it wasn't for this woman, I wouldn't be back in the program because I had moved out to California that day that I came home. And it wasn't long. 2 months later, I lost my job. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to move to California. I'm going to drink myself to death. I'm just going to party till I die. I'm done with it. F it. I'm done. I I didn't go to one party. I was there a year and a half and never went to the beach because I'm an alcoholic. I drink alone. I'm a George
Where'd you
Thorogood
go?
song, you know?
Were you in Malibu?
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. I was by San Diego, outskirts of San
Okay.
Diego. I was in Lemon Grove for a little while, and that was the wrong place for Dion to be. And I never saw one lemon. Well, I saw a bunch of cars on cinder blocks, but I didn't see any lemons. So I moved back to Colorado, and my drinking would take on proportionate amounts. But we all know the story. I was given 6 months to live because I had jaundice. They said that in front of my kids. I'm going to tell you now, I forgot I was even told that. It wasn't until my daughter reminded me about a year ago that I was told I
Mhm.
had 6 months to live. And what is that? It's, our forgetters work so good, man. So
Mhm.
good. I'll be in jail on the weekend. Monday, I forget, or Monday, I get out. Tuesday, I forget Wednesday's court, and I'm going to miss it because I'm drunk because I already forgot. That's my life. So my wife would tell me, Dion, I know the sober Dion, and I'm going to love him, and I'm going to love you until we get that person back. See, when I went to AA, she was going to Al Anon, and she still had her black belt in Al Anon. That's what we call it, right? The black belt of Al Anon. And thank God,
Yeah.
right? The last straw for me was this, Dion, I'm not going to be around you if you're drinking. This is the one person in the world that means everything to me, and that was not okay with me. So I started placing myself in detox. This part's a little tough because I'm still a little angry. Went to detox for 2 years asking for help. I also went to AA asking for help. Now, when I first went to AA, it was who here needs a sponsor. I didn't realize that they had changed it to who here is willing to sponsor, which I don't agree with. But it's simply so for 2 years I kept raising my hand. And they must have thought I was nuts. But for 2 years they let me flounder. 2 years.
Really?
Okay. Detox didn't help me. They kept handing me a piece of paper. And now, I help run another group. In fact, it's going on right now where that's the question we ask. Who here needs a sponsor?
Yeah.
If you don't have one, you're leaving with one. Even if it's temporary, I can't take it full time. At least you got somebody, right? Finally, a man comes up to me and says, Dion, I'm going to be your sponsor. You need God in your life. And thank God, because I was close to death. I was in and out of detox 22 times in 2 years. And I put myself there every single time. So I've been on both sides of the detoxes. And finally, it would stick. My sobriety date is 4/16/16. I'm coming up on 10 years in April. By that time, my kids wanted nothing to do with me. Nobody in my life wanted anything to do with me except my wife. That was about it. Everybody else had taken off. My kids were old enough to move out by that time. And actually, while I was trying to sober up, my son came to me and wanted to get off meth. And I said, there's my couch, take it and whatever you need, and I was still trying to get off the hooch myself. He got 2 more years than me. So, you know, he's at 12
Oh, really?
years of being off meth,
He's
man.
14,
Uh,
2014.
my daughter has 4 months of sobriety. She's probably in the grassroots meeting right now. All my kids are back. I have 4 of them, 2 bonus kids and my own kids. I have 5 grandkids. They're all in my life, but it was not an easy path. At about a year and a half of sobriety, I'd had my first anxiety attack and my PTSD would crop up. And I was diagnosed with PTSD, depression, anxiety, and ADHD. So I'm diagnosed with 5 different mental illnesses. I'm going to tell you folks, I'm on nothing. I'm not on any meds and I'm a free man. I used to be. I took depressants for a little bit, went to therapy. So during this first year and a half, I wouldn't be able to get to meetings, because going somewhere wasn't optional. My hair got real long because I didn't go I didn't go anywhere. And so I decided, well, I can't be without community or without fellowship. So I start going live and that actually started something. And now I've been going live for 8 years, every day for 8 years. In fact, after tomorrow, I'm going to take a week off. It's the first week I've ever taken off doing it. And I started doing that. And what I did is I started discovering how to stay home, stay sober, live in recovery without pissing my wife off, because that's the main part. And I thought God was picking on me. I'm like, oh, why are you picking on? You're always picking on me. Why is it always me? And then the coolest thing in the world happened. I'm certainly not condoning death or anything, but COVID happened. And you all came into my world. God had been preparing me to take care of this, to help out with it.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's when I started the podcasting, things like that. Now I do a lot of advocating. I'm helping put in a new detox in our area. I just help open a crisis center. I do a lot of education, podcasting, and I don't take a dime for it. Okay. I'm a big advocate on accountability. Colorado is the worst state for recovery services. We're the only state not to approve last year. We fell by 4.61%. All right. And that, for me, that hurts, man, because we used to be number 7 in the country. So I keep my politicians accountable around here. I've helped shut down several nefarious sober livings. Recovery coaches cannot take insurance here. We got rid of that. I mean, it's a mess out here. So I had to start to figure out how to educate people without saying, you're doing it wrong, and I kind of started to move into something else. But now my life is, like I was saying, I'm a free man. They give me the keys to the church. They give me the keys to the community center. They let me walk around. And it's amazing how the community will react with you when you're doing the right thing. But the reason I was able to do that is because of the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, because it freed me from the bondage of self. And the more free I get, the more I seem to be able to help. And, and I also have these other mental difficulties, and I get to utilize those also to help more people because I've been there. So I went and faced my fears. I did that 4th and 5th step. I got through the steps, and then I was able to use my tumultuous past to start helping people. And then I figured out everything that I went through was just to prepare me to help God's children. And that's where I found some really good freedom. I'm grateful to be an alcoholic. And let me explain that to you. You two probably already get it, but let me explain to the listeners. I'm grateful that I'm an alcoholic because I can't think of any other reason I would have sought for God. God's the biggest thing. I talk about God so much, even my own family started calling me religious. I'm not. In fact, I got offended by it. I'm going to show up on Christmas in a Jesus costume. I'll be like, well, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Let's see.
That's right.
Just rub it in, because I'm kind of petty that way. Right. So I'm still a selfish person. I still have anger. I still have fear. I have my character defect, but now my selfishness is, what does God want? Now my selfishness is something entirely different. I have a wealth of friends. Everywhere I go, I have friends. You said it in the beginning, right? That AA is pretty big. AA is the largest organization in the world, actually, the largest one. Christianity might have us beat, but here's the kicker. No one wanted to be a member.
Yeah.
No one wanted to
Kicking
be a
and
member.
screaming.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anybody skip into AA. Yeah. I've seen them skip out. So yeah, life is, I'm not going to say easy, but it certainly is easier. You know, there's a lot of neat things, but I would say probably more than anything that I'm grateful for is that I get to be a good example for the people around me. Because I don't care how old my kids are, they don't do anything I tell them to do, but they do everything I do. Right. So I got
Yeah.
to heal my family. Right. Break these generational curses of anger and resentment and angst. We ended that. It ended with the Millers, man. You know, and then I got to heal my neighborhood. Right now I'm working on healing my community, and we do that by meeting people where they are at, finding out what they need, and supplying it. That's all we do. It's the same system.
Yeah.
It says rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. You're not going to have the same experience as me. It's a broad highway. It's a really broad highway, right? So we're all going to take the path, but we're going to have different experiences because your needs are different than mine. And I'm going to kind of end on this is whether you believe in God or not, if you are sober, I believe that God is working in your life, whether you see it or not. I can see it. But since we all have these different needs, the higher power concept, since God is perfection or is everything, that means he can be anything to anyone at any time. And that's beautiful in and of itself. So, and of course, thank you very much for having me on. Storytelling is very, very important. It brings hope. It makes people not feel terminally unique. You know, you'll be listening to somebody that is not even close to who you are, and they're telling your story.
Yep.
Yep.
It's the way
Yep.
we call it reading my mail, right?
Even if not in bits and pieces, just somewhere in there, you have that common denominator, that common bonds, just
Mhm.
somewhere in that story. And we've interviewed people, all over, men, women, just everything really. And there's always something in someone's story that resonates, like, yeah, yeah. And, I can't really speak for anyone, but I kind of been to rehab a lot too. And it was more like a bed and breakfast,
Yeah.
but they would give you the big book. Every time I got a free big book, it was
Oh,
a
there's
soft
something.
cover, but still, it's a big book.
Yeah.
And I would always read the stories in the back,
Yes.
but I would always try to take myself out. Oh, well, I didn't do that. Or yes, absolutely. And well, it explains all the times going to rehab. But yes,
Well,
absolutely.
well, defiance is the number one attribute of every alcoholic. So we're always looking for I was always looking for how I was different because then it set me aside. And then I was able to use that as an excuse to continue drinking. Well, if you went through what I went through, then I ran into another recovered alcoholic and couldn't use that anymore. Right.
Yep.
Because they're like, I have been where you have and I have a solution. That's the difference here. So,
Yep.
Well, you said something, and you were talking about rock bottom,
yeah.
and you said rock bottom being death. And I don't remember what year it was, maybe year 4 in recovery. I had a sponsee,
Mm-hmm.
and up until I had this guy, he passed away. He died of
Oh,
alcohol poisoning.
yeah.
I was with him when he passed away. I was with him and his mother. Yeah, kind of but I used to always say when I got to AA, I didn't have any hope.
Yeah.
no hope, no hope.
No.
Poor, pitiful me. When you see that dead guy, there's no hope.
Hope is
The
gone at that point.
paramedics couldn't wake him up.
Nope.
Nothing was gonna change that moment right there, and I
Mhm.
realized there was always hope.
Yes.
There was all but my selfish ass was only thinking of what I wanted.
Yeah. What can I get
Thank
out of
God
this?
I didn't get it.
Yeah. Well, I was always trying to fill up that God-sized hole in my stomach. I tried it with booze. I tried it with sex. I knew better to get into some drugs, but I did, there was something about, it's 8 o'clock at night. I'm drinking a beer. I do a line of cocaine. I'd start talking to you and then the birds start singing. I couldn't do it. It drove me nuts. It was like that. It's like, wait a minute. What? So that was
You
a trip
know,
over me.
something you touched on or you were talking about that's a big deal around here, and it is everywhere, and I think it's getting so much better, and it's because of people like you. We have friends here in our community with the recovery community. We have a lady that's been on the podcast several times, Dickie. She is a crisis specialist. They
Yeah.
put her in a van. She rolls right up to the house. What do we got to do? We're going to get you out of there. And like they made that position, I think, for Dickie because she would be the one to come get you.
Yeah.
And, but even the other day, and I don't know how the laws have changed. I don't do the politics. I don't know. But I know in the past 15 years, we had a young man the other day, Roger, one of Mike's sponsees. He's been on this program too. He called, he goes, I got to get a guy in treatment. I got a first name. Basically, I don't know anything about the guy. He has no job, no income, no nothing.
Mhm.
What's the process? I call a treatment center, know several people at them. She said, just bring them.
Mm.
I'm like, he don't have insurance. He don't have any. She said, it's fine. We'll get it worked out. He's been in there 60 days now.
Wow.
And I mean, just show up. So they're able to do that now,
That's
taking them
fantastic.
in and then work with them on Medicaid or whatever it might be. I mean, just show up, man. There's no reason. And I'm glad for that. And I don't know what part of government, I don't know who did what. I don't care. But
That would be community. The government had nothing to do with that. I guarantee it. In fact, the government
That
needs
was
to
but
be out of recovery.
well, but they're able to go through Medicaid,
Yeah,
you know, and that's great. I
it's a
mean,
great program.
Medicaid will literally let them show up at the door and say,
Mhm.
fill out your paperwork, and by the end of the day, we got you and receive treatment. So
And that should be
it's
how
great to
every
see that.
treatment runs. It doesn't it shouldn't matter how much money you have if you're, got your 2 cars in the garage and you're and I'm
Yeah,
putting this in quotations, a functioning alcoholic, which is an
yeah.
oxymoron, all right? Or whether you're living on Skid Row, you're going to the same treatment center. You're going to the same treatment center. It doesn't need
yep,
to be Froofy. It doesn't need to be Malibu. It doesn't need a swimming pool. What it needs is accountability. It needs instruction. It needs
yeah,
God, and some kind of peer-led support, whether that be AA, Celebrate Recovery. There's great programs out there. So I'm really
Yeah.
yeah.
glad to hear that. In fact, I want to find out who that is so I can send them a message and say, thank you. Now come out to Colorado and do it, please.
I'll send you her Instagram link. She's pretty
Okay.
cool. We have a lot of cool people down here. My fiance, as a matter of fact, she's a drug and alcohol counselor. And she's always toting around this gigantic bag, and she weighs 110 pounds. And I'm like, the bag weighs more than you do. And finally, after we had been together a little while, I'm like, what is in that bag, that you're toting? And she's literally carrying it's homeless shelters, people that'll take women, people that'll feed children. It's all these resources.
Resources.
It doesn't matter where we go. We go out to eat on Saturday night, that freaking bag's in the car, and she'll be out there looking. Somebody calls, and
Mhm.
I'm like, that's awesome, man. Like she can pull some
We
strings
we
and get
need
people.
thousands of her. There's a lot of great people that work in the
Hmm.
industry that we absolutely need. I believe that there is a clinical side to this. And if we can have both sides, which is what I've been talking to local detox about, they're really not wanting to hire peer people. So I'm like, call the AA hotline. It's free. They
Mhm.
want to do it and
Yeah.
you don't have to pay them. And these people are going
Yeah.
to get what'll happen is they get them willing and then send them to you. Now you have somebody that you can work with. And then you can go home at bed at night knowing that you did a good job. So,
in our groups, we have a great club over here that has meetings all around the clock. I was working at a treatment center last year, and the other big group club in the city, it was this time of year, it was Christmas Eve, maybe the day before Christmas. And those folks, we go into treatment centers here and do meetings, and they do as well.
mhm.
The Highland Club here in town. And man, all of a sudden they show up. It's 7 o'clock. It's a Friday night or whatever night it was, Christmas Eve. And man, I bet 20 people came in. They had a Santa Claus. They had made homemade cookies, all this kind of fun stuff, and just did this great little deal with the clients. And
How
they had a
fun.
blast. And
Yeah.
yeah, and just hanging out, and it was like, this is what recovery is, and it lets those people see there's a whole other deal going on when you get out of those doors, and it's just good to see that with community. As a matter of fact, I've got to go Christmas night to the treatment center we do here, and I've been sober coming up on 8 years, so 7 years, and I've done the meeting on Christmas night 4 of my 7 years
That's
of
great.
sobriety. This will be my fourth one,
Yeah.
and just filling in for somebody that couldn't do it. And that's my favorite meeting, man. I got high as shit on Christmas, so I'm sure they did too. So we're
Yeah.
gonna have a meeting 2 nights from now. So
There's no better feeling than getting out of self and helping other people and watch them get their lives back together. I've never found a better high in my life than
That is
watching
true.
somebody else get their kids back, that their
yeah,
mom starts talking, that they get their first job. It is amazing to watch. And I don't come down from it. I don't
yeah,
crash, I don't burn, and it's healthy. I wish our treatment centers would do that. They won't even have AA meetings at our treatment centers here right
Really.
now. Yeah. Uh,
That's how I was
it's
introduced to it.
it's tough, man. I have to cut through red tape to help people. But
it's weird in treatment. Used
yeah,
to be there were hardcore AA programs and NA and all that. And now it's kind of a do whatever, I don't know how to describe it. It's very weird. I
yeah,
worked at a treatment center that was that way, and we did an AA meeting, but they were doing all kinds of different things. And I think those folks were just so confused over, what are
mhm.
we doing here? It's different for sure.
Yeah. Sometimes we kind of have to go with that too, because as Dion, the AA member, I have no say on outside issues, right? It's not for me to say. If I'm there as an AA member, that's me keeping my mouth shut. But Dion, the advocate, as a working member of the community, I can certainly say something. Or I can do.
Sure.
So I've been encouraging the treatment centers and it's starting to come back. It was a lack of trust, and I don't blame them. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
blame them because we didn't have the best representation, and I'm not talking about AA, I'm talking about the recovery coaches. It's yeah, because they ran around
Yeah.
saying we're AA, but no, they were recovery coaches without any resources,
Mm.
Sure.
and
Sure.
they were just doing what they were told. These are great people, right? So
It's pretty fun. One of the things always makes me feel good. And just when I go to that treatment center 2 nights from now, they have a sign in sheet, and people from my group and other groups in the community, that sign in sheet is nothing but folks that I know that are in there every night of the week doing the meeting.
yeah,
And
isn't that
it
the
could be
coolest thing?
Cocaine Anonymous,
Yeah.
Narcotics Anonymous, alcohol is there 2 or 3 nights a week, but there is a meeting in that building every
Mhm.
night of the week for those clients. And it's all folks that have years of recovery that are still
Yeah.
going in there and doing their thing. And if you didn't look at that sheet, you'd never know they were in there,
Yeah.
but seeing it always makes me feel good. And I go, I know all these folks.
Yeah.
So,
And
but
without the program, and because a lot of the recovery is the same. So, we talk the same kind of talk. So, yeah, I think it's great to hear these things mixing. It used to be in the 90s, if you went to an AA meeting, there was an Al-Anon and Alateen meeting going on at the same time.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
it was standing room only. If you didn't get in there 10 minutes before, you weren't getting a seat. Now I go and it's not hard to find a seat at all. So, but we're a little bit more spread too with Zoom and different things. So, but yeah, there's a lot of great stuff out there. Absolutely. And I would challenge listeners to go find what's right for you. Listen to that intuition, find what's right for you. Find your own group. Check out a lot of different meetings. Your gut will tell you when you're in the right place.
Yeah.
sure. Dion, on that note, man, you have a podcast. Tell the folks where to listen, where to find you,
Oh,
all that good
absolutely.
stuff.
Trudgingtogether.org is my main website. I'm going to be changing it a little bit here. You can always go to YouTube, put in the Daily Trudge, Dion Miller on Facebook. I'm not hard to find. If you put Trudging Together a Raw Recovery in Google, you will find me. But YouTube is probably the most consistent place. What I do is I do the Daily Trudge, which I clearly do daily, and that just covers a recovery topic. And then I have different types of podcasts. So, and I'm just here to help. I'm 55 years old. I've been through a lot in my life, and I'm at the point where I just want to give it away. All the wisdom that I've collected. if I can help somebody avoid the last 10, 15 years of hell, I'm going to do that. If you go to my Facebook, it says career, under career, it says I ruin drinking careers. I do. And I'm good at it, because I'm the guy upstairs. All glory to God, right?
Well, Dion, thank you for coming on, man, and Merry Christmas. But man, we're so glad you came on, and we love stories, whether they're in the back of the AA book or on YouTube, or Spotify. So think that just giving it away is somebody heard what, and you don't know where they heard it. We had someone in Brazil heard one of our old timers, one of our first deals we did, a horrible sound, the whole deal sounded horrible, but the message was good, and this young guy heard that and said, he reached out and said, I love that story. And man, that's so cool. That's so cool. And so you never know where the ripples of this will go. So
that's part of the adventure, though. I have no idea how many followers I don't keep track of it. But so the way I do things is if I help one person, that's fantastic. If it helps more than that, that's God's glory, man. That's what God wanted. So
sure.
I always do what is it that God wants, because the outcome is always better than anything that I can come up with.
I think what I love the most is that we don't know who is helping.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Humility.
It's helping someone that we get nothing. And I just think that's cool. I like that probably more than I do anything about this. Is I don't know if there's some guy in Australia, or right down the street from my house
Could be
that happens to hear this and he's in a bind and he hears Dion or Mike or me or somebody and is like, man, I'm about to blow my brains out and maybe I want this tonight, and stumbles along and down the road we go, and we never hear anything about it.
We do this too. This is all nonprofit. Matter of fact, I would go the other direction because it cost me a lot of money. We did the podcast strictly to share the message and get it out there.
Yeah.
And that, we don't, I think last year we made $20 and we did about 60 episodes. This year we've made no dollars, and that's okay. Cause you know what? Hey,
you're still here.
And Matt, you mentioned Roger earlier. Tomorrow he'll have 3 years of recovery. He celebrates.
Roger.
Yeah.
And he had a similar story to what you were talking about earlier. I was sitting in a meeting and I heard him say one day he'd been coming around for 2 or 3 weeks and no one offered to sponsor him. So I got up with a piece of paper with my number on it and I said, "Here, we're gonna start eliminating excuses one at a time." And now he's out there helping other men, and that's a wonderful thing. So.
And I will brag on the Koala Club where I go, and specifically the meeting that I go to, the 5:30. It is geared for new folks coming in the door.
Yeah,
and we have ways of recognizing folks that it's their first time or whatever it might be, and not to overwhelm them, but we don't let them leave there without them knowing, hey, we're here.
Yeah.
Here's the kind of what we do. And, if somebody walks in and I'm on the rotation to chair meetings one night a week, I do it every once in a while. And we just kind of have a unspoken rule. But if somebody walks in and it's their first day, it might be a step meeting or a tradition meeting. We go to step one right off the bat, and that's what the meeting becomes. And without even, sure. And I'm very proud of that with the group we have. I mean, if you're new, there may be some great places, but I'm very proud that we approach it that way.
The newcomer is the most important person in the room, always and forever. And if the new person comes in, We don't need to be talking about humility or AA 102 or advanced AA. Back to basics, steps 1, 2, and 3. Step 0, the psychic change, things like that. Absolutely. We meet them where they are at. We do not ask them to
Absolutely.
meet where we are at because they can't do it yet.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, thank you, Dion.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dion, appreciate you
That
coming
was
on.
great.
Great talking to you.
Worst case scenario, I just gained 2 more friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's worst case with Matt anyway. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
You
He's a
don't
good
want
guy.
me.
I don't know you well enough to give you a hard time yet.
Uh-uh.
It
Everybody
doesn't
does.
take people long. I have that effect on people.
Yeah,
It's
you
usually
seem
pretty
like you're a
quick.
pretty
So
jovial guy. Yeah.
yeah.
Easy going.
I don't fool with anybody that doesn't kind of cut up and pick it, a little
Yeah.
bit, and I expect it back. I like to do
Totally.
it, and I expect it the same way.
Matt, I sent you some of those Cousin Eddie shoes. Just let me know when you get them. Okay.
Man, I want that mug that he was drinking out of with the moose horns or whatever,
I
when he's
got
walking
you. I
around.
got you. I
That's what
got
I
you.
need to top off with the white shoes and the Griswold Blackhawks jersey. I'm
All
kind of a
right.
cross between Griswold and Eddie. If you put them together, if they had a child, it'd be me. So,
And Danny McBride. But
and
anyway,
Danny McBride.
we got to get out of here, Matt. Thank you, Dion. Appreciate it. Everything. Love your story.
Thank you.
Matt, I will see you as soon as you have someone else to visit with. So we're going to end it the same way we always do. From Colorado,
Yeah.
Bossier City, Louisiana, Reno, Nevada, we are always the Grouch and the Brainstorm.